0.
So, good evening, good morning, good afternoon for now who is watching us in Europe. It's like a surprise and an honor to have both Natasha and Kostantin. So, it was a little bit postponed because we tried to make this stream for many times, but for one problem or another one, we were not able to do it. So, I'm so glad to have both on the channel. And today we will try to make let's say a roundtable, a chat about the actual situation. I prepared some material because let's like to watch about something that me and Konstantin like more than Natasha, like economical situation, but let's talk about it. And I wanted to show it to you super fastly. So let's see. First thing, it's about the exchange. Normally, the people look about euro ruble or dollar ruble, but what I wanted to show you, it's something that we will see after. Why? It's like the change with renminbi yuan and the change with Indian rupees. If you look to these two changes, we can see that the Russian ruble lost with renminbi from the beginning about 275% the value, but it's mainly it's more than the loss of the value with the euro. Why we are talking about it? Because actually the first let's say trading partner of Russian Federation is China. So it's very important because all the trades made with China and India, it's made in renminbi and in rupee. So the other interesting thing is about this is the last updated chart about the selling of Russian fossil fuel, and we can see that the actual amount of selling it's going down and down and down. The pipeline gas it's at least not zero, but very few. There is still crude oil that is in the same size, but we will see later fastly. And let's see to the most important thing, that is the revenues. And the revenues that was in the top in April 2022, about $1.2 billion a day. Now it's a little bit more than 500 millions a day. So there is a degradation of at least 30-40%. And where is going this, let's say, fossil fuel that was banned from Europe from December 5th of 2022? We can see that it's going the crude oil mainly to China and India, and European Union we will see where. And LNG is still in Europe, a small part. It's like a big quantity, like in the column, but it's a small quantity in the amount. And for the rest, it's Turkey, China, India, nothing more. Where is the important thing? It's that the biggest part of the export, it's crude oil and not refined, and so with less revenue. So the revenue that is calculated less now in the export, it's minimum 40-50% less in revenue. And the revenue, it's the selling, it's made in the others money, currency, rupees and renminbi. So Russian Federation now it's full of India rupee, and they don't know how to do with this money. Interesting things. Why? Because this week there was one interview of the Prime Minister of Hungary, that is Orban, and we can see now why Orban is so interested in making one fit two shoes and saying a lot of good things about Russia, about South Streams, and blah blah blah. We can see that it's the biggest importer still of Russian oil. and LNG. Why? Because these countries, Hungary, Bulgaria not, but historically there is a big connection with Russia. Slovakia and Czech Republic, these countries, they don't have access to the sea. So this was the only cases of the European Union where these countries were able to import steel from after December the 5th. Okay. Companies who still importing like Russian fossil fuel is Sika India, Paradip India, and a Turkish company, China, and Turkey. Fastly, the last 3 slides about like Russian defense spending. We can see that in trillion rubles, it was like saying that 2023 was about 4.8 trillion rubles, but the actual amount that is, let's say, forecasted by independent sources, it's 9.7. And in August, if I'm right, the Russian says that the expenditure for this year, it will be 100 billion instead of the previous 40 billions for year. Cost of like supporting the Ukraine, last 2 slides. This is like the amount of money, military and humanitarian financial aid. We can see that the biggest amount of money is still from United States, then European Union, UK, and blah, blah, blah. The percentage of the quantity of money and financial aid, it's still the biggest part is US, but then you have Germany, Poland, UK, Japan, and other countries. So this was only like a fast economical data from like official sources. Let's say that the Russian statistical data, it's not so, let's say, real from the last year, but the trading data, it's public, so we can see at least what is happening in the economy. So Kostantin, I wanted to say to you, if you are what is your opinion about what I showed, and then I will move to Natasha about like inside Russia, what is happening in Peter, and the opinion from like a regular life, not like economical.
Stefano, you showed correct numbers for the most part, except for I have one correction. There was defense spending increase, a huge hike for 2023, and you said it's forecast by different experts. It's not forecast, it's official. Well, first, the spendings were said. You see, Russian budget, it's how much the government makes and on what it spends, is they start preparing it in September for the next year. And it takes a couple months, to fine tune, to add something, to deduct something, and so forth. So the budget for the following year is done before New Year, before the holidays. And 4.68, was not put. It's around 4.9, I believe, trillion rubles for 2023 defense spendings. This is absolutely right amount that was set in the last year's budget that was accepted for 2023. But in July, Vladimir Putin, as of an emergency move, signed an additional document doubling the budget, increasing it to 9.70. So it's not expert forecasting. It's actually real budget. It's official data. So you can have it in the same color. So it's 9.70. Compared to last year, they quadrupled budget.
My question is, returning back to what we said in advance, that is this. It's revenue. If we can agree that the revenue they're going down minimum 30-40%.
Absolutely.
If I'm
Absolutely, yes.
let's say that like the national Russian, let's say not budget, the national fund was about 150 billions, and I am using a part of this money to finance the deficit, because after we will return to not economical things, but it's important because the last year was the official data, it was about 48 billions of deficit, 42, 48, let's say 50, but it's easier. This year it was between January and June already over 40 billions of deficit. How we were talking about this 1 year ago, and we said with this quantity of let's say less revenue and more expenditure for the war, technically the finance of the state can let's say still with money for 1 year and half. So now, in your opinion, how much like they can be able to maintain this deficit with less revenue?
Economy of a country is a dynamic, it's not a thing, it's a process. It's very dynamic. Okay, so they have run into very serious issues with budget deficit. Just like you said, it's really hard for me to operate in euro. I know in rubles. Okay. The planned deficit was around 3.8 trillion rubles. Now it's over 4. So it's for the first 6 months, 7 months, it's more than they had planned for the entire year. And on top of that, they doubled in July. They doubled the war spendings, military spendings. On the other hand, they still have the reserve fund. It's a savings account of a country, basically. And they have not run out of money. Half of it is frozen in Europe, but in Russia, they still hands on half of this reserve fund. But it's depleting. Okay, they're using it to cover the budget deficit. So what they decided to do is, well, you see, there is no perfect solution for the Russian government. One of the solutions to decrease the budget deficit is to increase earnings, right? And how do you do that? If you have so much money coming in dollars, you set a different exchange rate. You devalue rubles. So for $1, Russian government gets more rubles, plain and simple, okay? Because the spendings are done in ruble. The salaries that people get from the government are in rubles, okay? But the revenues are in dollars, right? So if the exchange rate is, let's say, 80 rubles for $1 then you sell oil for $1,000, and you get 80,000 rubles you can spend. But if the exchange rate is 100, you get 100,000 rubles, 20,000 more. And this is exactly what we saw happened in late July and early August. They started devaluing ruble. This is how they're trying to cover up to make up the budget deficit. But this is a very dangerous process, because once you devalue too much, inflation sets in, because Russia doesn't produce anything, it buys, it imports all the goods, both industrial and the means of production and consumer goods. So if the dollar costs more in rubles now, then the prices that you buy paying in dollars in China, but you sell in rubles, the prices will be higher as well, and that's inflation. Okay, and inflation is really, really bad for for the economy in general if it's out of control. And this is what we're seeing right now. Inflation is getting out of control.
Natasha, like just in your regular life, let's say in Peter, did you have any type of sensation of this inflection? Let's say that you go to Petrorechka or whatever. So, what is your favorite supermarket in Peter brand? One
networks.
touch.
I'm not gonna advertise them. So
Okay, let's say one. It's not important, but normally when you do like the normal expenditure for the week, you notice a difference in some type of food or no?
yeah, there are like few chains that basically actually like all of them are the same. Like Konstantin knows, like Dixie, Пятерочка, right? These main chains of where people buy groceries, like Lenta,
Federal
whatever.
chains.
Prices
Federal.
are almost the same everywhere. But you should also keep in mind, like prices in Russia are always growing, except seasonal stuff. Like, okay, there's summer, like right now we have some fruits way cheaper than they are in winter, right? That's like seasonal, how they call it, deflation or something like that. But in general, Russian people live in this situation that prices are increasing every time since I think since 2014 probably when dollar jumped like insanely like twice in price, and then COVID and everything. So if you ask me, yeah, prices are changing. It's a non-stop process. So every time when we go to shop, every time we spend more and more money.
May I ask you something, Natasha? Yeah. From the economics point of view, the key point here is how fast prices jump. If they raise slowly over time, that's more or less okay. That's normal. But if this time comes and they just jump up, and then time comes a few more weeks, they jump up again. That's dangerous. That's getting out of control. Are you seeing something like that when they jump like sky high?
No, this I remember this happened when war started. I don't remember if you were here. There was a moment when
yes, I was.
It increased like insanely. Like some products start to cost like 200% more than they used to, but that's not happening right now here. I mean, yes, some things start to cost more, some things start to cost less, but it's not like visibly that much for people as it was before.
Now, another question. I usually judge by food because people buy food every day.
Yeah.
Are you seeing shrinkflation?
There is inflation because I noticed it.
No, shrinkflation. Do you know what shrinkflation is?
What is that?
Shrinkflation. Well, you go to a store and you shop for milk, and you have one bottle of milk, and it's 1 liter. And the next week you come to the store, it's the same bottle, but instead of 1 liter, you have 900 grams. Okay, yeah. And the price is the same, but in reality, the price has risen by 10%.
Yeah.
And it's called shrinkflation. Are you seeing that?
It was done before. I mean, yeah, we used to buy, for example, buckwheat, 1 kilogram of that, remember? But then I think it started to change like in 2016 maybe or something like that. They start to implement these things in marketing. So it's still 900 grams or something like that. It's not really changing. I mean, we already know that it's not 1 kilogram. It's still the same.
Well, when I lived in Russia, that's until last September, it was not something to consider. It was done in like tiny proportions. I have heard that right now, if you go and look closely, shrinkflation is actually very high. For example, you go and buy a piece of butter. Usually comes in 200-gram packages. 200 grams.
It doesn't come with 200 grams since years already. I think it just people just started to notice these things. But honestly, I noticed.
Well, now it comes 120. I was buying 200 grams last September. I can tell you that because I do shopping in the family.
I was buying 180 grams because they were cheaper, and I don't really need 200 exactly. Since years, I think my boyfriend was here still. Yeah, it was like 2021. That was the case with COVID.
I want you to go and check now because there are packages 120 grams now.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm still buying the old ones. So
So friends, think about this. From 200 or even from 180 grams to 120 grams. And the price has gone up, not much, but has gone up. So the weight has gone down significantly. The price has gone down greatly. No, the price not significantly, but the weight has gone down greatly, and that's inflation. That's right there in front of you.
No, yeah, but it's not like the point is what I want to say is it's not happening right now. I mean, it has been happening already since a long time. So it's not like something unusual, not like something has happened recently, just in a few months. No, it's been happening since COVID, and it's still happening.
I wish there was an experiment done. Someone would go out and measure prices like film prices 1st of July and now, and we would see, that'd be real nice.
I think we have these videos. I mean, there are bloggers who used to, like you used to go to shops, remember? We just can repeat the same thing. I can go to the same Lenta and show you the same packages, how much they cost, and we can compare.
It would be great if you do that. And then let's take 3 months increment. So you do it now, and then we'll come back in 3 months and see what happens. Because I predict with this fall of ruble, I mean, folks, it's impossible. Russia buys food. It grows very little food because whatever the wheat it grows, there's a huge deal of foreign combined harvesters, fertilizers and things like that. That everything is bought for dollars. So the price of everything is going up, and it's impossible for prices for food not to go up. Impossible. Ruble was 82 in June. Now it's jumped to 103. And now it's 96 and a half again. I mean, I bet everything that prices will there's no way they cannot, they just don't go up. You know what I mean? That's a basic economic law.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, but it's not like Russia doesn't produce food. It actually produces a lot of food. It also has its own combiners, but yes, with foreign spare parts, you're right. Like there are a lot of, we are globalized. Like nobody produces everything from A to Z, right? Fertilizers, Russia is number one in that, right? So we don't really buy fertilizers. But anyway,
even fertilizers, they have a component of foreign, machinery, foreign technology, foreign equipment, and so forth. So Russia doesn't produce anything 100%. Nothing.
Nobody does it. I mean, maybe not
Yes, there are countries that actually produce. Chinese, the Americans produce some things. So I disagree here.
Well, we have some things also that we produce from A to Z. Like I would name them, but maybe.
Please do. I dare you.
Because like I have people who work in these factories, but I can't name them because it's related.
Oh, okay, I understand. Well, that I believe. That I believe.
And it's close by. I mean. These people are close to me here right now. I mean, I know that they produce it from A to Z. But,
Natasha, they also need microelectronics. Russia does not produce any microelectronics whatsoever. Zero.
They produce, but it's, as you know, like microprocessors that they make, it's not enough, right? Like they don't have enough, how it's called, power to produce enough, like how to call it, not purchasing.
Yes, say it in Russian.
We don't have this amount of factories, right, to produce that amount of microchips that they actually need. So that's why they need Chinese. But from the other side, also, they don't have this. I mean, these developed microchips that Taiwan, for example, produces, right? We don't have them at all in Russia, right? So they are like, we're so much far away from like Japanese, Americans, right, and Europeans, but they still produce. I mean, they produce this kind of microchips that will be enough to send rockets or something like that, but not to create some kind of, complicated robotics or anything like that.
Okay, Natasha, I cannot argue with that because I have no knowledge of what they produce inside industrial military complex. They might produce, but I know what they produce outside industrial military. Nothing. Zilch. Zero. The only company was Baikal Microelectronics, and it filed for bankruptcy because they were telling us for years, oh, we're just doing great. We're producing this Baikal. And it turns out it was not Russian made, but produced from the parts made in Taiwan. I
I remember that.
Yeah, that just happened 2 days ago.
We had Kostantin and Natasha one stream 1 hour ago with this guy from Taiwan, and it was very interesting because he said to me that, for example, Taiwan is completely independent in any type of case, like for production, food, everything, except one thing, that it's energy. So it's interesting because like in a case of any type of things with China or whatever, they have to be supplied by energy because they are not independent. And another thing about the chip, it's this type of decoupling. Before of this, I will make a commercial, Natasha, so you don't have to do it. Like this is a Petyorichka. So
this is yeah.
Перекресток. So,
X
and this
retail.
is like something that you don't have in Peter. That
No.
is Bayram. It's only in Bashkiria. So, because I went many times in Ufa, so it's interesting for me as let's say an Italian when I was in Russia. We don't have this type of things so marked in Italy, for example. The chains of supermarket are very different. Like also prices. You can have like I don't know, Pericrostok it's okay, length it's bigger. Vision, for example, that it's only in Bashkiria, it's much cheaper, incredibly much cheaper. If
It
I
depends.
compare,
It depends on which region. It depends what they grow. It depends. Like if you go to north, prices will be completely different.
No. What I was saying that, for example, if I buy product in Bashkiria, in Bayram, it's very cheap. So there is this division of category of supermarket, but that we don't have in Italy. We have only, let's say, big brands like Esselunga that is more expensive, blah blah blah, but and discount that actually this type of brands are dominated by Germans with Lidl and Aldi. But general prices are, let's say, mainly the same. What I went in Russia from like continuously from, let's say, 2013 and 2021, and I think that Russians are used to a minimum inflation, let's say over 5, 6, 7%. But we don't have, because we didn't have inflation. So in Europe, if you see the prices, there is not, because the interest rate were zero, let's say in bank. So also inflation was very low. In Italy, I don't know, not zero, but 0.1, something like this. So when I saw the difference of prices every year in Russia, for me it was a little bit shocking, because how the people can manage this to buy stuff that increased 10% like this. It was, so this is why
That is nothing. 10%, it's nothing. Like it's when it's 100%.
Okay, I've noticed this thing only after the starting of the war last year, because I've noticed like the price of a special type of yogurt that I normally take. I went out for abroad for 1 month, and it was increased 15%. But in Italy, it's huge. So we had like this time March and April last year. Now everything is like stabilized. Now the inflation in Italy is going down. But it's interesting what I wanted to ask about, not groceries, produktki, blah, blah, but these two things. Let's say, I don't know what is like Troika card in Peter, and this other thing. So it's like Sportmaster. I'm not giving a commercial, but only for you to understand. Like this is like Decathlon in Europe. It's like
No,
about
it's very expensive. Decathlon is like low prices. Actually, this one is completely different level.
it's the type like sports equipment, blah blah blah.
Okay.
I am asking to you why, because I saw one video where a lot of products. I was shocked the first time that I went in Sportmaster that I saw a lot of products that was cheap. For example, of Colombia, like jackets. I bought my jackets in Ufa. It was much, let's say, cheaper than in Italy. And Russian brands made in China, blah blah blah. I saw this video on YouTube. made, I think, 1 or 2 weeks ago, where they were making compliments of China products sold in Sportmaster or whatever. Like, how is, in your opinion, the market change with this, like, a lot of Chinese material that came in the last year? Cars, clothes, everything.
Yeah,
About quality, prices, blah blah blah. I don't know, because I didn't see.
I mean, I noticed that in quality it didn't change really that much, because they were already, like, if you talk about this level of shops like H&M, right, like this kind of shops where the majority of people buy clothes aside of markets, it was already somewhere in Bangladesh or something like that. I mean, this clothes was already made there, and
Okay.
it's still the same. Like, I went to these shops that used to be Polish, for example, and I buy the same clothes that I used to buy. I mean, for me, nothing has been changed, because this Polish shop still, they were suing this clothes somewhere in Bangladesh, Cambodia, in this kind of countries, and they continue doing this, but they are named differently. I didn't notice, but like people that I know who buy like very luxurious clothes, like expensive brands, right? They notice things, because like they started to have, like, local designers even, okay, they started to have issues with materials, because they used to buy, for example, threads in Italy, sewing machines from Germany, right? And like fabric somewhere else, like Italy, Turkey, and all this kind of places, and they started to have issues with that. That's what I noticed. Yeah, that's happened, but it doesn't affect me, because I don't buy luxury stuff. I'm not this type of people. And still, if these rich people want to buy something original, they just go and travel to Europe. They keep traveling, so they have no issues with that. They go and buy it.
Yeah, I can
Look, there are issues with that. I mean, it's not as accessible as it used to be. You
But
have to be.
I thought so. Yeah, I thought so. But I started to look around recently, and I see there's people that I know, they getting visas easily to Europe. They just travel and they buy stuff that they need. And I started to see, like, that's all. War is over. So everyone is traveling. Everything is fine. They enjoy.
Where are you at
Kostantin,
right now?
Kostantin, if I have to say to you, because I check, let's say that I did something, because I have like one friend that is living in a Belarusian friend that now is living to Czech Republic for works, blah blah blah, whatever, and they were not able to ask like for a visa for their parents to came like to visit them and trying to helping, blah blah. But I was checking about the main problem that the people don't get about European Union, and especially Schengen visa, it's that any Schengen visa is valid for any country. So the problem is that, okay, Latvia, Czech Republic, Poland, it's like denying any type of visa for Russians. You can apply to Greece, you can apply to Spain, you can apply to Portugal,
France.
and Italy, for example, Malta, whatever you want, Cyprus. The main problem is that you can have now, it's not about having or not having the visa, but like the queue for like the visa center. So, example, from Belarus, if you want to try like to apply to go to visa center, it's technically impossible, because if you go to check like the agenda, there is no place. So there is another black market where you can buy the place in the queue to go so it's something. But technically, let's say if people have a lot of money, they're able to make
Easily.
Stefano, Natasha, I know a thing or two about visas. Trust me, I'm living in exile, and a lot of people trying to get Schengen visas here. A few things please consider. First of all, yes, it is possible to get a visa, but let's say 6 years ago, I obtained a Schengen visa, French visa. I just gave my passport, 100 something euro for processing fee, and a bank statement to an agent. I didn't even go to consulate, and an agent did everything for me. Okay, and like 1 week later, I got the passport, 5-year visa, no restrictions. Right now, If I have to, and I could do that from any city in Russia. Okay, Rostov, there were many consulates in different cities and so forth. Now, in order for me to obtain a French visa, I must obtain this list of documents, okay, because rules have changed. It's much more expensive. I have to be present in person in one place in Moscow, okay, or I'm not sure if there's one in St. Petersburg. I think there's only one place. And they give me visa not for 5 years anymore, but they say, well, please provide the booking of your hotel. And let's say from 15th to 21st of September. And they give me visa from 15th to 21st of September.
The point is, you are talking about like me and you, for example. But for me, it's generally impossible to get visa right now. Like I don't have money. I'm a single mom. I don't have anything that keeps me in Russia and blah, blah, blah. They will reject me even. So I don't even try to apply. I'm talking about different things. Like me and you, I'm not sure about you. Maybe you're some kind of oligarch. I don't know how much how much estates and palaces do you own.
Woohoo! Yeah, oligarch.
I think we are the same almost like category of average Russians that go through all this hell. Yes, but I'm not talking about average Russians. I'm talking about rich Russians that go to dress in Armani or this kind of places, drive, I don't know, Rolls Royce and etc. That's what I meant when I said for these people, nothing really has been changed. Sanctions supposed to affect these people. They didn't affect them in reality.
I can agree with you, but something that say Kostantin, okay, for my experience, let's say that I know about visa made last year when the regulation were already changed. For example, from Ufa, you needed to go to Samara and be in person. As you said, they need a lot of documentation. They had children. They, for example, for one couple with children, they gave the visa to the parents, but not to the child. So you need to complain. So mess. The main thing is that now the consulate, for example, Italian consulate don't accept any type of personal meeting for visa. So the problem is using only visa center. There is few of them. It's more complicated. And the other thing is that, for example, it's not direct flights. So the example, 1 month ago or less, I was in Baku, and after I was in Georgia. A lot of Russians. In Georgia, a lot of Russians. So, and it was, I was shocked because government is actually a little bit in Georgia, let's say, not against Russia, let's say like this. And everywhere in Tbilisi, there was Ukrainian flags. I was shocked. Everywhere Slava Ukraine. It was, I don't know, I think in Ukraine there is less Ukrainian flags than in Georgia now. And what I wanted to say is that it's, let's say, it's complicated, but Kostantin, like to fly everywhere to Europe, if you want to use not expensive flights. But for people that have a lot of money, they can go one day in Dubai.
Again, you talk about average people. That's what I'm saying. Again, the same thing. I'm not talking about average people. Like for average people, it's hell. And I know how it is. As I said, I can't get visa. I will not be able to exit this country, actually. But for this type of people that were already rich, okay, there like some things has been changed, but in reality, nothing changed for them that much. They have a lot of money. They travel to another country. They apply for visa from a third country, not from Russia. They don't have issues with that. They travel.
It's less convenient. It's become less convenient even for them.
Yeah,
it used to be smooth. Now it's less convenient.
Of course it's changed, but not that much for them. I mean, it's a little bit more complicated, but not like how it was supposed to hit this type of people. These sanctions, I mean.
They're hitting us, actually. I've been talking. I've made a stream about that. They're hitting us, and I agree with you here. And then, all wives of politicians, not the oligarchs. Oligarchs, that's a different story, right? The millionaires, multimillionaires. But what really upsets me is the families of the government officials who are propaganda. They easily fly to Europe. they have fun, they come back, they say one thing in Russia, and then in Europe they do another thing. So that really is something.
No, and
It's
and
upsetting. It's very
no,
upsetting.
I agree with you, but the other thing is that, as I said to you, let's say that it's very easy for Russian to go to Georgia, and it's not expensive to go to Tbilisi or Kutaisi. Now there is, for example, Wizz Air direct flight Kutaisi Milan. So with Wizz Air, it costs 40 euro. So if you want to effort to come in Europe via Georgia, it's not so expensive. It's starting to change a little bit. Because before I had to go to Belgrade or Dubai or Istanbul or whatever. I tried, but just for you to know, to go from Bergamo to Istanbul, it was very cheap, extremely cheap. Now it's expensive because it's full of Russians. They're going to Milan, as you said, but through Istanbul. So before it was, there was like Ryanair of Turkish, that it's called Pegasus. It was very cheap. Now all the flights are fully booked because they're made to make like the exchange through Istanbul. So let me put some question from the public because I just received. Konstantin, this is like more economical. Like, doesn't Russia have fairly low overall deficit and foreign debt compared to the most of the Western European countries? Not to say anything about US. What does it mean in the context of the war?
It doesn't mean much because that's true that Russia in general does not have huge deficit compared to the USA, the Western European countries. But you don't forget this. But Russia has been isolated now from the financial markets, from all over the world. Russia does not have access to foreign financial markets to borrow money like it used to, and it totally depends on itself. Okay, that's pretty simple. I mean, that's a survival mode. If it runs into any kind of deficit, it doesn't have to. It doesn't have money to pay government workers, and that's a huge article of expense. Okay. Hope I answered the question.
Another one. What do you think is the goal of the Ukrainian drone strike on the Russian cities, not the military targets? What do you think will be the effect?
Well, the effect we're seeing already. I would like Natasha to add to what I say. My opinion is that the military-wise, the damage has been non-existent except for the strikes to the Pskov airport. That's important, and that's Russia has incurred lots of damage. But other than that, what Ukrainians are doing, and that's a very smart tactics, they are bringing the war onto Russian territory, and most importantly, they're putting fear into the Russians, regular Russians. Before, they never thought of, we should be afraid of any kind of attack from Ukraine. Are you crazy? War is happening somewhere far, like in Ukraine. It doesn't concern us. Now it does. Now, any Russian on any territory, western part of Russia, European part of Russia, can expect a strike. He or she doesn't know when. He or she doesn't know how. But this definitely is not the stability that Putin promised. This definitely is not the victory that the propaganda is talking about. Okay, this is a constant state of fear, plain and simple. Moscow airports close down for a few hours every single day. Okay, that is a huge disruption, and besides fear, it's also economic effect. Qatar Airlines are threatening to leave Russia if things with drone attacks are not rectified within 1 month. They will leave Russia for good. Okay, Russia will have one less option for people to travel abroad. Okay, and things like that. So effect is here, and effect is, in my opinion, is actually quite big. Natasha, what do you think? You're in Russia.
From Russia, I can tell you that I don't see any really effect. Like I was expecting that actually, that these drone strikes will finally, move some people, let them think that finally, okay, there's war, there's something going on over there. But that's not happening. Like they see news, oh, like Pskov is just a few kilometers away from here. It's like 250 kilometers away from me. And I went even to talk to people and ask them, like, did you see yesterday at night? And say, no, what's happened? Drones like flew to, it reached Pskov, and they're like, okay, and I'm like, come on, guys, it's 250 kilometers away from here, and like, what do you mean and? They burned like 4 airplanes, basically, that Russia builds like 4 airplanes per year, and they burned them down. And people, the point is, majority of people who are not into politics, who are not like, journalists or like this kind of people, they're so tired of everything that they try to distance themselves from news. And unless drone will reach their home, like directly, something will fly into their window, I think they will not care. It doesn't affect them. Like they see, okay, they're drones, well, they will learn how to shoot them down, So I think the biggest effect that this thing has, it's mostly effect on Ukrainian citizens than in Russians. Like I see it mostly to push this kind of spirit of Ukrainians that they do something, that they hit, because they have, they have a lot of troubles right now. They have like, it's tough, really. People also are tired of war, and here and there, and they, get this poor man to go also to fight. People are tired of that too. So to increase their like, how it's called, боевой дух, how it's called?
Morale.
Morale. Yeah, right. To increase morale of people, that's, I think, the main task of all these drone strikes, because I think they understood already. Russians, they won't do anything. I mean, they won't care. They close airports in Moscow, and people said, oh, these bastards. But come on, there are drones in Moscow. Don't you see that? And they're like complaining, like, why they close their airports? They don't complain.
Well, I tell you what, all my neighbors are afraid, and they're freaking out because a drone came into our apartment. Well, our apartment building, about 50 meters from my apartment window. And once that happened, everyone in the place where I live around, they started freaking out. And every single day they go on drone watch. So they care. They care a lot.
Well, they care. It's a small amount of people. Russia has 147 million of people, right? So, it affected them personally, so they care right now. But the
entire city near Moscow cares. That's for sure.
I don't know. Like I call my friends, they have no even idea that they're like, I have even people who work in Moscow City and they go to work. And I'm like, don't you care? They say, yeah, it's scary, but they go to work. They don't do anything. They don't go and protest. They don't do like ask questions to the government, like, when is it gonna stop? Nothing.
Interesting. And the thing is, the questions must be asked. The government has been promising us, Russian airspace has been safe because we have this super duper best in the world air missile defense system that we spent trillions on in the last 20 years. And like, where is it? Oh, it doesn't exist. Okay. Why? No one's asking that. I agree with that. I don't understand why.
Even drone flew to Red Square. Come on, like Red Square. Do you know that in Red Square right now there's no GPS? Like you can't use maps, you can't order taxi. All this center basically doesn't work. So people right now, they go to work every day. They can't use location services, nothing. They don't ask questions. Why? Like how drone flew to
Natasha, but it's interesting because I had like a talk with Ukrainians, and it's like it seems that the new drones are not using GPS only. So the main thing is that they're using like a reconnaissance system without GPS. But the main and the biggest problem that we will see, I think, in the next week, that they're using these. But for me, it was like a joke when I saw the first time. But these like paper drones, cardboard drones. And I had a talk yesterday with this journalist, Katya Nesterenko from Adin plus Adin from Kiev. And the cost, it's less than a smartphone. So if you imagine that with a drone that costs $500, you can destroy one tank of many millions or whatever. It's like the warfare. It's completely, let's say, different, and it's interesting also about another thing that I wanted to add also from question. I heard that whatever Russia cannot buy, it could buy through Central Asian countries, like Eurasian communities. What I'm asking, like especially to Konstantin, but after also to Natasha, this problem I was able to see completely when I watched like the data about the import of semiconductors and smartphone or whatever from Armenia. It is plus 500% from the last year. So Kazakhstan also or whatever. This third party, let's say, trade, it's not something that could damage also these economies. Like it's completely like on the light of the sun that they are like making extra money in giving to Russia what they need. What is your opinion?
It is not the countries.
Okay, let's see companies. I listened your streams of yesterday where you said that the company, Russian companies in Kazakhstan, it's plus 70 or plus 80% the last year. So you think that it's like Russian companies?
It's definitely not the Uzbeks, not the Kazakhs. It's the Russians. If it's semiconductor, I mean, let's say I come to Uzbekistan. I don't do business here, but I could. I set up a company and I find local producers and I say, hey, I have buyers in Russia. Let's trade watermelons, okay? And we get a truck full of watermelons and we send it to Russia and the Russians send us money. It's possible. And a lot of Russians do that. But I cannot go ahead and start importing semiconductor processors. Who do I sell it to Russia to? Okay, is there a free market? No. Only KGB is responsible for, an army responsible for military-industrial complex. They need it. And I cannot just go to them and say, hey, I have this. Would you like to buy? No, it doesn't work like that. Those folks probably sent spies to Kazakhstan, to Uzbekistan. And these people, pretending regular people, set up companies and they find something they look for, something specific, processors, electronic parts, and they import. Okay, so if we're talking about general trade, yes, lots of Russians set up companies, like I said in the stream yesterday, not in the video. 70% increase in Kazakhstan alone, okay, over the last year in companies, new companies with Russian capital. But that's not military stuff. That's not semiconductors. That's consumer stuff. iPhones, cars, Mercedes, BMWs, Coca-Cola. That's right. Food, stuff like that. You do not hear about semiconductor because it's done covertly, and it's not done by regular people. It's done by specially trained. It's like special operations, So that's what I think.
So, other question about what you said in advance about shrinkflation. How is Russia's shrinkflation any different from other countries? I can confirm that there is in Australia. We have this constantly. Every time I go to a supermarket, it's visible.
How is different from Australia? It's the speed that things shrink, and that's the percentage they shrink by. I am pretty sure that in Australia, people do not go and one day buy 200 grams of butter, and then in 2 or 3 weeks they come back to that same store and it's not 200 but 150 or 120 grams. Okay, I don't think in Australia it works like that. I think in Australia it's more like used to be 200 grams, now it's 190 grams. Okay, in Russia it's radical, and in Russia it's happening fast. In the last, I'd say, from the start of the summer. And you watch, Natasha, I hope you do that. You go and film the prices and how much of weight. And then come back in 3 months before New Year and then we'll compare. Okay, let's make a video together or something.
Actually, we can make this experiment. That's pretty interesting. Because I remember, if you remember, Navalny team, they were doing that. I think they have site with these prices, how they were changing since war started. You can see it online.
Who's that?
Navalny team.
Navalny? Well, I'd love to see that. I haven't seen it, but
they have a project. I will send you links somewhere if they didn't stop doing that, because they were doing like in different regions, in different shops. So you can see this graph, how prices were changing.
I tell you what, the day that Russia attacked Ukraine, 24th of February of last year, was a tough day for me. But at the end of the day, I went to a Russian supermarket nearby and I filmed all the prices there because I knew that Russia is up for huge economic turmoil. Okay, so I filmed everything. I filmed there were no people because everyone was like, oh, there'll be tons of people hoarding food. No. On 24th of February, it was fine. And the prices at that time hadn't gone up yet. So they were the same as the day before war. Okay, so I have those prices. We can compare to the prices now, and then we can compare to the prices in 3 months.
Yeah, that could be a cool project, actually. I think we should do that. So we can speak.
It's like a real inflation. Because what I wanted to ask you, because in the calculation in Italy about inflation, we have two different calculations. One is like, it's called like global inflation. Actually, it's about 6% or whatever. Another one, it's like grocery inflation, but it's the real inflation that people cares, because you don't care about how much costs one train or one airplane or whatever. And it's interesting because actually grocery inflation in Italy, it's higher than the regular inflation. What is strange for me, because I made a lot of, let's say, I tried to analyze a lot of official data about, let's say, Rustat or the Russian Central Bank, and you can confirm me or not, Kostantin, but technically, when you are increasing the interest rate, you are increasing also the inflation. What happened?
Vice versa. No.
Sorry.
If you increase the key rate, you decrease inflation.
I wanted to say that one, but I mismatched. So what I saw, like in Russia, is that in the last, I think, 5 months of the last year, there was the lowest inflation of the G20 officially. So it was, I don't know, 4%, 5%, 3%. And it was very strange because after the beginning of the war, there was this huge increment of interest rate. Then they went down. And it will be curious to see now what will happen after the increase of 350 basic points of August in the real interest rate and the inflation, like 3.50% of increment of interest rate in Italy could be, I don't know, the government will go down in 1 week because they are complaining about 0.5, not 0.25.
That's the difference between Italy and Russia. In Russia, inflation 300%. No one will open a mouth.
Okay, so But and the other difference that I can see it's like that in Italy the main difference is that, but I can see the Southern Europe or also Germany, whatever, because all the inflation it's related by the fossil fuel and the cost of the fossil fuel, like because actually the cost of 1 liter of gasoline in Italy, it's gasoline in Italy, because we have two, it's like benzene and diesel, but let's say benzene it's at least €2 for liter, and gasoline let's say 1.9. So Natasha, it's like having an heart attack, because I know that in Russia it's 0.5 euro for liter. But like what I'm seeing now, it's that especially in the northern Italy, there is a huge push that the people is not seeing to like the electrical mobility. What we are seeing the last year, it's that I don't know, around my house last day I was able to count 6 Tesla in my block, not all the other electrical cars. So what I wanted
You
to
live in some fancy area.
No, it's because now in Italy, with especially in my region in Lombardy, to buy one basic Tesla costs less than one Golf.
Seriously.
Yes, it's less than
Wow.
40,000 euros. So
Wow.
it's if you have to choose, and the cost of gasoline it's €2 for liter. And now let's say that I'm not saying this in a random case, because I have also a Tesla. I changed from an Audi and I made 50,000 kilometers in 6 months. So I can prove that you can use electrical car for work, whatever, blah, blah. Now I spend nothing in compare of what I spent before. And I don't have photovoltaic panels, solar panels, nothing. I spend maximum 170, 180 euro for month. Before I was spending 500-600 euro in gasoline. So if you compare these things, what I'm trying to say, the real inflation, it's changing in Europe because the mobility is changing. So we will not be related so much to the cost of the fossil fuels like we were before. So it's interesting, because if I will show like this only last graph, let's chat the last 15 minutes about let's say the infrastructure that Kostantin I showed to him a lot of times, but what it's changing. First, it seems that we will not freeze also this winter, because we are
Because of global warming.
now.
Hey, you know what? That's what not they're saying in the Russian government. They're saying you will freeze.
Okay, but if you remember that Arte like thing about we were eating like mouses in like the Christmas 2023. Like now at the beginning of September, the gas storage of Europe it's already over 90%. So and last year we reached in November. So it seems that the strategy is not working about gas. What is changing? It's changing that, for example, Germany started to open free regasificator in the north, and Italy now have like 6 or 7. So it's changed that for me, this is my personal opinion, because I have a lot of friends, like also in Russia or whatever. It's a huge economical catastrophe for the export of Gazprom. Because I don't know, we found different sources, and it was much easier to catch all this gas from Russia, and we gave a lot of money to the Russian Federation, but we are not giving more. So this is what my personal opinion, because let's say also this thing about BRICS, last provocation that I wanted to give to you. it's interesting because we have this question that I will post to you about, I don't know if Natasha were talking in the media about the new Russian geographical map with a part, some island of Russian Federation, but now it's China in Far East, and or a part of Philippines or whatever. Now it's China. What I wanted to show some different things that could change. Like Turkmenistan, for me, it's very interesting, and it's next to Kostantin now. It's the third gas reserve in the world. What will happen if they will do this Trans-Caspian pipeline and this gas will go to Baku? I have to remember to everybody that there is a gas pipeline that go from Azerbaijan to Italy now. So it's something that for me it's very stupid economically, because the pipelines were already made. We don't know also if the war will end, when will end, if the market will be restored like it was before. So what do you think about it?
The pipeline that goes from Baku to Italy is called Nabucco, right?
The last time it's called TAP, because Nabucco it's going to it's Baku, Georgia, Turkey, and then from Turkey it's going through Greece, Albania, and Italy. The last part it's called Trans-Adriatic Pipeline, and it's driving to the southern Italy, to Puglia.
You know, answering your question is quite complicated, because I don't know what to answer. It looks like there's a crazy circus right in front of me happening. And a part of it is that, yes, Russia did lose the best customer, the wealthiest customer, the best paying customer, Europe, forever. Because Europe, even in some, I don't know, well, first of all, in 20, 30 years, I think majority of energy needs will be covered by alternative energy, okay? So Russian gas won't even be needed anymore, okay? But even if Europe turns into gas, in the future, then it'll buy a little bit from Russia. Not like entire volume like it used to, okay? And all Russia had to do was just to keep quiet and keep on cashing in. And that's it. Russia didn't have to do anything. That's why Russia wasn't producing anything, was not researching anything, was not advancing, because it had European money from gas and oil, and it was selling oil to other countries. That's it. Russia is nothing more but one big gas station. And now no one is buying gas from it anymore. So, because they found new gas stations. And this is the foundation of all my streams, all my stories. Russia has shot itself into both feet, into both hands, and in the head. What are they going to do? Huge economic depression for decades from now, because Russia simply does not have any revenues coming in. I mean, it does, but it's very little. It's not as much as it used to. So the economy will shrink enormously. Okay, so I don't know what to tell you. It's so stupid.
But let me put this other thing. No, but this is what I'm thinking, because it's not about the war. Let's say we're not talking about the war. It's like economical harakiri. Like it's like nobody was talking about this thing, but it's called EastMed, because it was cheaper to bring from Russia. So now there is this condition where Lebanese, Israeli, and Egypt, they are not very friendly together. Now they are very friendly together because there is a huge gas field south of Cyprus, discovered from Italians, from many. And now they are managing all the money that it will take from this gas extraction to Italy, that will be like the new gas transfer station from European Union, and we will feed Germany. It's not like before, like Russia was feeding Germany. Like it's going south, north, not east, the west. So this is like there was no need to discover new infrastructure. This is why I'm thinking, what was like the counselor, economical counselor of the Kremlin for this thing? Because
There was not. That, please understand. They did not count on this happening. They thought they're gonna take Ukraine in 3 days, a week, 2 weeks, just like they took Crimea, and that's it. Everything would be the same as usual. Europe would keep on buying gas and everything. So, had they knew, they would have, I don't know, just ran from Ukraine. This is my personal opinion. They did not count, they did not plan anything like this, okay? That was a huge mistake. They totally underestimated Ukraine. They totally misplanned everything. And that was, I mean, you gotta be so stupid to do that, It's just, that what amazes me. It's like those people who planned and executed, it's like they have no brains.
I have a last two questions for you.
One last thing. You see, what they did by themselves, okay, they're going to be out of the office soon. Next week, in 1 month, next year, and they're going to die soon because they're old. But the entire country, all Russians will be paying for that for decades and decades and decades to come. You see what they've done?
Let me put the last two questions just to ask also to Natasha. It was interesting for me, like the popular sentiment in Georgia. That is very strange because people and government, it's a little bit different to things. Especially in Georgia, because all what was happening to Saakashvili, now Saakashvili it's like imprisoned in an hospital, blah blah blah. And I really didn't know, for example, that Saakashvili was like very young first time that it was elected, like 36. It was like one of the youngest president in Georgia, blah blah. Something that it's what was okay. Let's reformulate the question. 2008, because I went to the border of Georgia through Sochi, but I was not able to go to Abkhazia because I had like a single entry in Russia. So it's like strange thing, but I was not able to go out and return back. And we were talking with Georgians, and they were asked to me, like if we went there because they never saw Abkhazia and South Ossetia because it's forbidden to go for Georgians. And I will show some pictures of this place because maybe you know that there is a huge sanitarium, like a spa resort next to Kutaisi. The name it's impossible because it's in Georgian, but I will try to read it to you. It was the favorite of Stalin. And now it's completely destroyed because after 1991, but it's an amazing place, incredible. What I want to arrive to this thing. South Ossetia, it's by car, 1 hour, 20 minutes from Tbilisi. So it's very strange for me that I have like Russian forces 120 minutes, 1 hour 20 minutes from the capital of Tbilisi, and in the opposite way there was a problem with Ukraine that was too, let's say, next to Moscow. What was the sensation in Russia about 2008? What happened, or there was not so much, let's say, media coverage? Why the Russian was intervening in Abkhazia and South Ossetia? Because I think that what is happening now in Ukraine has roots also in Georgia, that probably the Russian Federation saw that the West was not acting and maybe will not act in Crimea, maybe will not act in Ukraine. What do you remember from 2008?
Different stories. I mean, what's happening in Ukraine, I don't think it's gonna happen in Georgia. They could do this because they destroyed their fleet in like few days, and Georgia could actually hardly could fight Russians back then if they wanted really to invade and take over the country. It's complicated, really. The region is complicated. Like I have personally friends from Abkhazia, right? This area that's separated, and they are actually different from Georgians. They have long history. This Russia likes to, interfere into this kind of conflicts, create mess close to its borders. So it's nothing new for me. But I remember actually 2008. It was like before even this economic collapse, and I remember how they were explaining that. Like the whole narrative was like they were our peacekeepers. Okay, people who stay there to ensure peace between these Abkhazians and Georgians. And then Georgian people dared to attack Russian peacekeepers. So we went to suppress their attack and like calm them down. Like, who are you shooting? That was the main narrative. And we were looking at it. I still remember I wasn't that much in politics. And I was like, well, yeah, how dare them to shoot our peacekeepers? They are peacekeepers there, And I was like, right, they should show them the place. So they didn't go further. We saw that, okay, they just, did something, like they pushed them back a little bit. And that's all. They didn't go to Tbilisi. They didn't go to kill people around everywhere they see or rob them or anything like that. So that's all. That was the main narrative back then. We weren't thinking actually even that the war is gonna start or something like that. That's
no, Natasha, I asked you because there is two connection, but it's strange for me. Both of the wars were at the same time or connected just after an Olympic Games in Beijing. So it's very strange for me, like that 2008 was Olympic Games, 2021 was like Winter Games, both in China. And as you remember, Russians didn't arrive to Tbilisi only because there was, let's say, something managed by the French president at that time, but they made an agreement because Russians were able to arrive easily to Tbilisi. And they were in Gori. I passed through Gori. It's 40 minutes by car to Tbilisi. So it's what I'm interested in this thing, because in this in the public, where Kostantin, the question that I bring for you before, it was like from Isla, that is one of my best viewers. That is from Kabardino-Balkaria, is from Nalchik. So what you said, Natasha, it's very interesting for me because I travel in a lot of part of Russia and former Soviet Union. And it was very interesting how the Soviet Union geographers made the borders and move people. Because with this system, you were able to don't have a national majority in any of the republics. Like we can check. Northern Kazakhstan.
That was the politics of Stalin, not like Soviet Union. It was directly
let's say Stalin, but let's say that when they made, for example, northern Kazakhstan, it's like with Russians. Northern Moldova, Eastern Moldova, it's with Russians. Let's say Eastern Ukraine, more Russian. Baltic states, still now, 35% it's Russian next to you. I don't know Uzbekistan. I know nothing because I never been there, Kostantin, but there is still like a presence of Russian people, or not like previews of 2021. Your mic is off.
Uzbekistan is a multinational country. There are plenty of different people live here, but most Russians left in the early 90s and they went to Russia. So there are some Russians, but not a huge presence. Okay, there's Russians, Korean, Jewish, Kazakh, Karakalpak live here, but mostly Uzbeks. Not too many Russians. Now, many more Russians came. Since last September, Tashkent alone around 40,000 Russians, and I don't know how many in Uzbekistan, a lot. In Kazakhstan, few 100,000 Russians. Georgia is full of Russians. Armenia is full of Russians. You can't even find like an apartment to rent there because it's taken by Russians.
That's like the evil plan of Putin. You see how he's inserting these Russians all over the world right now.
Well, I tell you what, I think Georgians are enjoying it because those who own apartments, they're cashing in. Armenians enjoying it. Armenian GDP jumped like 12 times in 1 year because so many Russians, pumped it with money. Same for Georgia, same with Uzbekistan. People have no problem with that.
Serbia also. In Serbia, there is also full of Russians.
Yeah.
Serbia.
Anywhere Russians went to, they have brought their money with them.
No, but the sentiment in Georgia it's a little bit controversial. I went to a place that it's like King Kali Garden, whatever. In the receipt at the end, there is like written. I will send it to you. There is written like memo. 20% of Georgia is still occupied by Russian Federation in every receipt.
Could you say it again?
20% of Georgian territory it's still occupied by Russian Federation. And at the end of the receipt, like I return back to our restaurant.
Well, that's true, isn't it?
No, but I say to you, the mood of the Georgians it's a little bit complicated because it's in a part it's okay, but in another part it's it's difficult to manage this thing about. But the last two things that I wanted to say to you, something in Georgia that was for me very stupid, because I went to Kutaisi and I didn't know that Saakashvili tried to make like a reform to make like federal governments to separate and make like one parliament also in Kutaisi, like to spread as more as possible the offices of the government, not only in Tbilisi. And I will send you a pictures. There is a amazing building in Kutaisi that it's not used, completely abandoned because it was made by Saakashvili. So it's stupid because it's a huge window made. It's like a snail, but all by window, and it's completely abandoned with a huge park and blah blah blah. The last question for both. It's in your opinion, because I have mine, but I want to listen from you. What could be a real exit strategy after 1 year and a half in this situation for the Russian Federation? Because every week that it's not going better for both parts, and also for the global economy, because I think that more we are going over, and there will be a pressure also of the money that it's drained to give assistance to Ukraine. And I'm sure that the two parts will continue. But what could be an exit strategy that could be sold to the internal public in Russia? If Russia will lost, I don't know, Crimea, example, could be like still something acceptable for the Russian public or not?
Natasha, you first.
Why me? We went first.
Sure. If you want me, I can go first. Russia is in Tsuntswang right now, meaning every next move will place it into a worse position. Okay. The best exit strategy for Russian Federation would be to, first of all, stop every single military strike, stop the bloodshed all at once, pull the troops out of Ukraine and return them to Russia, and make peace, terms with Ukrainians. Okay, that is number one. Free all the annexed lands and start building from scratch. But you know what happens if that happens? You know what happens next? everyone asks question, one simple question. Why the fudge did you do that? And that question will be addressed to Putin. So first you enter Ukraine, you kill how many hundreds, thousands of Ukrainians, you raise cities in Ukraine, and now you kill Russian soldiers, by your hands, you kill Russian people, civilians in Ukraine and in Russia, and you simply 2 years later you pull out the troops. So why did you come in the first place? And Putin will have nothing to say, and therefore he will be very quickly out of the office. And the best case scenario for him would be to end up in Hague. Okay, that would be the easiest for him, because much more cruel answer is awaiting him in Russia at the end, and he knows that. So what he is trying to do right now, I believe, is to freeze the conflict. He would really love to, make the bloodshed stop, but where the troops are today, and obviously that's not going to happen because Ukrainians are going to be pushing the counteroffensive, and he is going to be hanging by his teeth to stay in power by not letting Russian. Well, it's not actually not answering your question. Your question is what would be the best strategy. I told you the best strategy. Stopping the bloodshed, pulling out of Ukraine, start paying reparations to Ukraine, making peace with Ukraine, saying to the whole world, hey, please forgive us. We really made a mistake. We're going to make it up to you, and start actually fixing the mistake. That's what I think what would be the best scenario for Russia. But it's going to be the worst scenario for some people at the helm of Russia, which is okay with me.
Natasha, if you have something,
I can't say like that easily, go and just pull forces out of Ukraine. Like everyone wants to hear this answer. The best option is just to grab army, pull it out of Ukraine, and say that's all. Okay, we're out of war. Let's be friends, and that doesn't work.
Natasha,
not going to be friends. Never going to be friends.
I'm exaggerating. I mean,
no.
Not with Ukraine.
My question, Natasha, sorry, my question was different. Like, what could be sold to the internal public of Russian people to because I'm trying to rewatch. It's very difficult by in Russian media monitor. A lot of extract from Solovyova or Simonian, blah blah blah. Now it's only like to listen how changed the propaganda in 1 year and a half. It's changed a lot, incredibly. For me, people that don't watch, it's easy to watch this video on Russian media monitor. It's with English subtitles. So when I was talking yesterday with my friend journalist from Kiev, he said to me that the Ukrainians are pretty, let's say, confident in the southern front. Let's say, I don't know. But she said to me that it's very difficult for them, the eastern front, because of the logistics, because of everything. It's better connected to Russia or whatever. So what could be if Crimea is lost? Do you think that Putin could be still stay in power and present like the Donbass as a victory or no?
First of all, honestly, I don't think there's a possibility that Crimea can be lost, because actually, like, Crimeans themselves are quite different right now from Russians. They are really fighting this war, and they are fighting for their own, let's say, island. So it's not like they're sitting there and waiting for Ukrainian army to come and free them, as some maybe like eastern regions in Ukraine right now that are occupied, right, by Russia. That's not the case. So I don't really see an option here that Crimea will join Ukraine any soon for this reason, because I know people there, let's say army, how it's organized. It's a little bit separated from Russia, from the whole Russia. I mean, about their moral motivation, about how they generally work. It's first thing. But even if something, I don't know, something will happen and tomorrow Russia will collapse and lose Crimea. Crimea will, I don't know, become autonomous region, whatever. I think it doesn't matter what propaganda can find a lot of excuses how they can push this narrative to explain this to people. And I can already come up with some telling you, these NATO, they're fighting. We are fighting the whole world. And today we lost Crimea because we are fighting like the whole world and we are alone, isolated. We need to unite around our president because otherwise we're going to lose the whole country. Пожалуйста. So tomorrow people will swallow this crap and will continue their daily stuff to do. Like how they lost some areas that they captured in the beginning, how they were explaining people why they're moving away from Kiev, right? How they lost Izum, how they lost Kherson Oblast. It was so easy to explain and everyone swallowed that stuff. It will be the same with Crimea. I wonder if even they will swallow, if Ukrainians will take some parts of Russia, like Belgorod Oblast, people will also say, yes, we're fighting NATO. So what can we do? We couldn't protect it.
Stefan, I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. Okay, I'll give you a brief answer. It's going to be very easy to sell. Putin's going to be out of the office one way or another. They're going to, somehow remove him. I don't know how, but anything is possible. And then the very next day, everyone will point fingers and say, that's him. That wasn't us. We were just following the orders, It was a crazy idea to attack Ukraine. You could be stupid to think that Nazis in Ukraine. You get as brotherly people. How could it's not us? We didn't know. He lied to us. We thought, and all the blame will be placed on Putin, and he knows that. And that's it. That's how they're gonna easily, justify everything.
So. Perfect. I had the answers that I wanted, but my sensation, just to close, it's that Natasha, only for this is military point of view, my point of view. It's that Crimea, it's much easier to take than Donbass because Crimea has no water supplied. So if you destroy the Kerch bridge without Novakakovka dam, it's you don't have to conquer Crimea because it will starve. So it's another huge problem or decision that military it's disaster to take. So let's see what will happen. But I think that the only problem that could be solved as fast as possible, it's less deaf people, because I know people personally that was catch for the front, both parts, and it's a very stupid thing because the Kostantin is from Rostov. There is a lot of Ukrainians also in Russia. People that I personally know, it's, I don't know, 1/4, half Ukrainian, half Georgian, half Russian. So it's something that practically it's very stupid. There is a lot of death, a lot of people that is dying for nothing, because at the end, we will see what will happen. But the real reason for dying, it's not so worth, in my opinion.
Nobody asks people, that's the point.
But the problem is also, I think that the Russian Federation was very good and able to make mobilization, because if we catch the percentage of people from Eastern Russia, it's huge. If you compared with Moscow and Peter, there is very few people in percentage of the population in the Russian core that it's actually in the front. So what is happening? Do you have a lot of Buryat or whatever, blah, blah. It's very difficult to explain to the people the real reason of this war, because after 1 year and a half, nobody's understanding it. It's changing also propaganda, whatever. So let's hope in a peace, because we want to meet together and have a super party to celebrate the end of the war, and also for the people on the ground, both parts. Also because in a lot of different part, let's say for me less because I'm more able to move. But Kostantin, it's like in Uzbekistan. If you want to move, it's more difficult. Life, it's more complicated. I want to see what the Asian real perspective. Just to close, next month I will be in Shanghai. In 2 months I will be in Sapporo and in Japan, and in Australia, Melbourne, for conferences. Just to understand that, talking with real people, normal people, if they feel what we feel, like what is happening the last years and blah blah blah. So we are over 1 hour and 30 minutes. So I wanted to thank you all for your time, especially Natasha, because it was very difficult to catch you, but the first time we tried. Thank you, Konstantin, also for your time, and good night for you, because it's very late there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the public that was in live and will see the video after. In the description there is both the channel, Natasha and Konstantin, so please subscribe to them, and hope to see you soon, and have a nice evening, night, morning, whatever. So see you guys.
Thank you so very much.